Hi, Mia here. I'm letting you know that this upcoming segment with Tinamarie Bernard, there was a little bit of a glitch in the shooting and editing process. We tried twice, and so each time it only wanted to show Tina and not Mia with Tina, and so we went with it because we realized that's how it's supposed to be. So please enjoy this segment with Tinamarie Bernard and me in the background talking. Bye. Hello and welcome to Supreme Feminine Essence, the gifts you were born with. I'm Mia Saenz, your host, and with me in this segment is Tinamarie Bernard. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. Tina does this incredible work. She's going to share her journey with us in a moment. And she went through, it's the first time I ever heard about this experience, and it is so mind-blowing to me that women suffer from this condition, this physical condition that also is part of our sensual reality, our sexual reality, our feminine reality. And it's so important to understand that we are not alone and that so many people can recover from anything as long as they change their, well, she'll share her story, but I found in my life when I changed my life, it was totally just, I'm all in to live. And I was guided by one step to the next, to the next, to the next. So when you hear about these amazing stories, don't feel sad. Know that it's there for you too. It's a process. It's a process, isn't it?
It is.
So will you share with us that ouchie, lovely story of yours?
Oh, and I will, this is not easy to share, even though I have done it in public settings and on forums, but it is so important. So people know I'm a relationship and dating coach for women, and I want women to be able to live more passionate lives. And one of the things I do is I tell women I help them find love, heal love, and make love better. And that second bit is really important for me because of the condition that Mia alluded to, which is I met my first husband. I was in my mid-20s, and everything seemed fine. We had a nice courtship. We got engaged. There was trials and tribulations along the way, but I didn't anticipate what was going to happen in my personal life. And that is sometime around the age of 28, sex started to hurt. And it was really kind of a shock because I had entered sexual maturity in a really loving way in a relationship where I enjoyed sexual intimacy. I'd always had positive experiences. I had never been raped or molested. So, for me, this suddenly finding that sex was painful it came out of the blue, or so I thought. And so that I can be clear, when I describe it as painful, I don't mean it was like a little icky or a little owie. I mean it hurt like there was a knife inside my vagina. Like painful, like I was being cut or ripped, burning. And I was totally ashamed. I'd gone from being the woman, I was in a career. I was working in, I'd gone to grad school. I was in pharmaceuticals. I was married. I had a beautiful house, and I was harboring this really terrible secret, which was on the outside, everything looked fine, but on the inside, I was broken. I couldn't literally have sex. I felt like I was wearing a do not enter sign over my body. And there were a lot of things that were starting to show up in my marriage that weren't good. And this did not make things any better at all because I couldn't basically have sex. And it was so embarrassing and had such a grip on who I was as a woman that I didn't even go to the doctor. Like, I had actually thought about going to med school. I was going to be an OB-GYN. So I was not a woman who was afraid of the stirrups. I went from like being totally open about my body to I'm not even going to go see the gynecologist. Yeah. So in my first marriage, I was married almost a little over 9 years. I'd say that the last 6 years of the marriage, I probably could count on one hand the number of times we had sex. Really bad. And what had happened is, in an effort to kind of like revitalize the marriage, we went on this vacation, and I got pregnant. And it was not a fun getting pregnant moment. I mean, again, this involved tears, this involved cringing, this involved doubling over with cramps and pain and burning. It was terrible, and I just didn't know what was wrong. But because I was now pregnant, it was really clear to me that I couldn't avoid the stirrups any longer. I mean, Tina was going to go in, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the doctor's office, and she's like done the blood work and whatever they pee in a stick, and she comes in and she's like, yeah, you're pregnant, congratulations. She's all excited, and I'm sitting there going,
you're bewildered.
I'm like, if you had any idea how this child was conceived, you would not be congratulating me. And then she says to me, is there anything else that you would like to say? And I was really scared. I can't even tell you what my voice sounded like, except it sounded like a prepubescent boy squeaking. And what came out of my mouth was 2 words: sex hurts. And she says, okay. And then she wants to do what she called the Q-tip test, which is back in the stirrups I go. And she takes a Q-tip, and she puts the Q-tip at the opening of the vaginal canal right there, and just touches the skin with the Q-tip, and I scream because this is the pain.
Wow.
It can't even be touched. And I'm thinking, oh God, the nurses are going to come in here. They're thinking like something crazy is going on in this exam room, blah, And she says, okay, you can sit back. And she says, I think you have a condition called vulvar vestibulitis. And I'm looking at her going, what the blah, 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 blah. Again, I was in pharmaceutical sales. I was used to big words, but I did not know what she was talking about at all. And she says it's a condition where there's an inflammation of the vulvar glands, the vestibular glands at the opening of the vaginal canal. So within every woman's vagina are these series of glands that make lubrication. Lubrication's a good thing. We need it for healthy, happy, enjoyable sex. But these glands could get inflamed. And that's essentially what happened. That my vestibular glands were on strike. And so any type of touch on them at all was causing this inflammation. And so she's saying this to me, and she says, we don't know if this is something that happens to women. We don't know what causes it. Sometimes it happens to women who've been raped or molested. And that wasn't my history. I'd had a really happy, healthy sexual history for the most part, certainly compared to most women in the world.
Right.
And so she's sitting there, and I'm in the paper gown going, I'm here naked, being told I have this diagnosis. And my mind got stuck on the word allergy, because sometimes it can be an allergic reaction. And I think to myself, I'm allergic to sex. I'm allergic to my husband. I'm allergic to sex with my husband.
How sad.
And sad, and at the time I was like, I didn't know whether I should laugh or cry. I just knew that I wanted to get the fuck out of Dodge, excuse my language. I was so unhappy, but I didn't know what to do. So I would stay in that marriage for another 2.5 years, and I would eventually leave, and I thought that I was done with orgasm. I thought I was done with pleasure. I thought, and I don't know why I cared so much about it, because honestly, my experience now and learning and talking to hundreds of women is that millions of women in the United States, from my research, millions of women in the United States will experience some kind of sexual pain in her lifetime. Like the studies show somewhere between 13 or more million women. It could even go up as high as 30 million. And that's just in the United States. And this is a country where women can talk about sex, and we have a lot more freedom sexually than most of the rest of the world. But so many women just shut down when this happens. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They're like, sex sucks, it hurts, it's bad, it's not fulfilling. Why even bother? And this is something I've learned. But that wasn't going to be okay with me. I remember sitting in my therapist's office thinking to myself, I'm 37 years old and I'm never going to have another orgasm in my life. That's not okay with me. But it would take me years to actually get the courage to talk about it like this, and to be able to laugh about it, and to be able to share it, because that's not my reality anymore.
Yes. And congratulations on that. So we want to know, we want to know partly what you did to correct it, and then we also have some questions and answers. But what was your healing process like?
So I can look at it from the lens of hindsight. At the time, I really didn't have a plan. I remember going to my first adult store and buying a vibrator. Now, in hindsight, I bought probably one of the worst vibrators I could buy for myself because it was not eco-friendly. It was made from materials that were not environmentally safe or sound. I mean, that whole industry is unregulated. And I didn't know then about greening your sex life, which is something I'm very passionate about now. But I remember just going home and like, what am I going to do with this thing? Okay, now I've got this thing. What do I do?
Yeah.
What do I want to do with this? I was really kind of naive in terms of sex toys at that time. But my doctor had said, this is partly going to be retraining your body. The medical community does things like give women medicine, different types of psych meds, using it off-label. I spent 12 years in pharmaceutical sales, so I've got like a squishy relationship with using meds off-label. People get surgery to cut tissue out. They use lidocaine. That was actually given to me. Like, put lidocaine inside my body to numb it so that I could be penetrated.
Right. So he can have pleasure, but you cannot.
Yeah, I thought, so it's not like pleasure. And I remember at the time when the marriage was still together, I mean, it wasn't a good marriage at all at that point, weeping and almost pleading with him, would you just pleasure me? Like instinctively, intuitively, there was a part of me that knew that pleasure was the answer. And when I say pleasure, I mean pleasure that was both satisfying to the body and to the heart and to the soul.
Right.
Like I had to develop a soulful relationship to pleasure. I wasn't the kind of woman who wanted to say, jump into complete and utter hedonism. Like there was a part of me that needed to be nurtured and cherished and taken care of, and that wasn't happening in that marriage. So when I did leave, I bought that vibrator.
I do want to say that there are so many women that it's unbelievable how many women in silence or even with their partner break down in tears because they want something. They want to have intercourse. They want to have sex. And whether the man, his hormones are changing and he's not interested or he can't get it up or he's actually has erectile dysfunction, whatever it is, it's a sorrow that's so deep within our soul for women that it's crazy how the thought used to be men like sex and women don't. That's bull. Because women we connect differently than men, but women want to be touched. They want to be loved.
Women want good sex, and women are willing to sacrifice sex altogether if it's just not happening in that way. And see, our whole attitude or idea of what constitutes sex, I grew up with the idea that sex was penile vaginal intercourse where he ejaculated. Like, so if the man didn't ejaculate, it wasn't a complete sex act. Really? Like, that's the definition of successful sex? I don't think so.
Well, that's procreation.
But these were I had to examine all of my killer beliefs I had regarding sex. So even though I had grown up with and had positive sexual experiences until my first marriage, I'd gone 10 years without, and it wasn't until I was out realizing that there was a part of me that needed to be healed, and I was not going to have someone use a knife to cut parts of my female genitalia. I wasn't going to use lidocaine, and I wasn't going to medicate myself into oblivion. I did a journey inward, literally, soulfully and inward, And so I got to know my body. I got to turn to, I took I had some relationships, and I was very lucky that the universe brought me sensitive, caring, passionate, sexy men. And so I experienced sexual pleasure in safe environments. And it was really that combination of experiencing pleasure that was body, mind, heart, soul connected with the courage to get to know my body in a way I hadn't. It was like this beautiful journey back to trusting my body as this beautiful, infinitely wise temple, and seeing how important sexual experiences, sexual pleasure, sexuality, and creativity were tied into who I was. That if I've shut down that portal, I shut down important pieces of who Tina is.
Right. Right.
So it was also self-pleasure. It wasn't just pleasure in relationships with men. It was self-pleasure, having a whole new relationship to what does it mean to touch my arm and be alive. It was reframing my relationship to nature, getting out, connecting to the web of life around me, like really, truly getting turned on at all the layers. And I'm still in that process. You know, I find an edge. I explore it, I tickle it, I play with it, I dance with it, get comfortable with that edge, move to the next. You know, so my journey has been one of honoring that call. Wonderful. And coaching other women first to wake up. Right. And then to create the container for them to dive in. Because I tell people I'm not your typical sex coach or relationship coach in this, or sexuality coach. Because if you saw me at the grocery store, you'd think I was a mom of two kids.
Well, you are a mom of two kids.
I'm a mom of two kids. You know, I'm not somebody who intimidates. I don't intimidate women. I'm full figured, so when I do my lectures, people can relate to me. You know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Let's talk about how you. Well, I know that you work with your clients in this aspect too, but let's talk about sexual energy and creative energy and how they are really the same and how we can move forward by honing in, harnessing, and understanding the correlation between the two of them.
So we think of sex as making babies or pleasure. And there's something really magical and
Not
mystical
anymore.
The pleasure part. So, you know, listen, we have our womb that creates birth, and that's the physical plane. And then we have the energetic plane of where we create. There's something mysterious and bigger and beyond my comprehension or beyond my use of words to explain what's going on in our genitalia and our first and second chakra. I don't even know how to explain it, but ideas get birthed, you know? And so if we shut down our experience of sexual energy, we shut down our creativity. Once I opened this up, my ability to write was explosive. Poetry was coming out of me, like really romantic stuff. Yeah. And, you know, music came, my ears could hear music with so much more vibrancy, how I saw and view the world. So your question is a beautiful question, and when people ask it of me, I sometimes think like I can't even put it into words. Maybe partly because if I do put it into words, it becomes a head experience, and my intention is to make it a corporal experience, to feel it. You know. So here's how I feel it. I spend my mornings when I wake up cupping my genitalia. One hand's on my genitals, one hand's on my heart, or my forehead, or my throat. And I breathe deeply, and I experience energy coming up from the earth through my body, through the root chakra into the second chakra. And I feel one of my coaches calls it a cauldron. You know, I bring in warmth and heat and arousal energy, different degrees. And it's not for the sake of sexual release. It's drawing into that space. And then I will do, I have various mantras I work with. And so it's to feel the life force through my breath and through the energy that comes up through my lower chakra. That's how I experience it now. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. And I love that the sexual energy is very much a flow of life, right? And so is creative energy. So they really, when you are in that enlightened state of constantly in the flow, what can happen but creation, right? Being creative and being happy and being joyous and all the things that we don't experience when we don't allow it in. So it's beautiful to keep it in that flow.
Yes, it is the flow. And, you know, flexibility is key to happiness, right? This does not mean that there's a nirvana. This doesn't mean I don't have arguments with my husband, or doesn't mean I lose my temper with my kids. Nothing of the sort. You know, I'm not like levitating off the ground.
You mean you're normal?
That's not,
you're normal?
I'm totally normal. I'm totally normal. I have bad days. I get, I catch colds. I, eat something that doesn't sit right with me. I mean, life happens. I have 2 children. It's crazy. But the difference between me now and me before is I can go, whoa, I'm shutting down here. Get back into it. I'm turned on.
That's
I'm
awesome.
committed to living a passionate life.
And that's where the flow comes from. That's beautiful. Your desire has opened up over the last, or opened up when you had your revelation. Sometimes divorce brings that upon us. Mine came after my first divorce, so.
Out of the ashes, we rise.
Right, exactly. And isn't that beautiful, really? That we don't go down and never come back up, we rise. Thank you. That was beautiful. Yes. That's lovely.
Aren't we lucky? Isn't it wonderful that we live the time that we live?
Yes, it really is. And also why this summit is happening on my end from my business sense is you nailed it on the head. This is the perfect time. So many people are so joyous and uplifting and want this interpersonal relationship growth, whether it's all really spiritual, but some people don't want to see it that way. So however you see it for your individual self is perfect and beautiful, as long as you're taking care of yourself with love and care and moving forward and feeling it. I want to talk just briefly, because we are, this episode always seems to just fly by. So I want to talk a little bit about your clients, and then also I want to hear about the free gift. That's always my fun part.
Okay, so my clients are generally women over 40. I do relationship coaching and dating coaching. I do work for a dating coaching company, one of the top in the country, which I love. Am I allowed to mention the name here?
You can do whatever you want, sweetheart. This is all about you.
So I'm a dating coach for Dr. Diana Kirshner's Love in 90 Day program. And so I work with women, I say over 40, but there are definitely women in their 30s who come to me too. And I love that piece because I get to help them date more effectively and find love. And also, when I'm working with a couple, because sometimes what will happen is a couple will come to me, a woman will come because a marriage is on the brinks and she wants help. So I get to coach them in all sorts of mindfulness practices. It's really take them from the pain that they're in on this beautiful journey to something that's more pleasurable. Because I literally went from pain to pleasure, and I get to coach them. So that's my clientele in general. I also have a private practice for women that I work with, and those women tend to come to me more for the sexual pain. Or if not sexual pain, the typical woman is a woman who's like, she's so not satisfied. And she loves the guy she's with, and she does not need to know how to tell him, it's not working for me.
Right.
Because she feels like she's a Fisher-Price toy with knobs and buttons, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, I'm not. I'm a Stradivarius violin. Why can't he play me that way, you know? So, and oftentimes their guy really does want to be better in the bedroom, but women struggle with how to explain what that means.
Well, they also have their issues. We're human.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by our upbringing and our culture, and yeah, exactly.
So those women come to me and they want to revitalize their libido. They want to experience meaningful sex. And because they've read what I've written about, which is some very edgy stuff, because I've been on an exploration in the context of a committed relationship, they have a sense, okay, Tina's going to honor my need for commitment and monogamy, because that's important to the mainstream woman, but she's had enough life experience that she can bring in sacred sexuality and tantra and other more esoteric practices, you know, and some erotica and some ways to put some spice back into the bedroom.
My favorite.
Yes. So coaching them how to communicate sexual needs, what to eat that it's good for sexual health and well-being, how to create a bedroom that's romantic and sensual and contributing to, better love play, how to talk to their husbands. My favorite thing is to say to the husband things like, your wife is skin hungry. You're going to pleasure her, and you're not going to actually have penetrative sex. You're going to take care of your needs, and this is how you're going to take care of her needs afterwards, so that she can be the queen in the bedroom for that. And to be able to explain that to a man so that he can get it, so that she can totally receive. Because so much of women's sexual experience oftentimes feels like things are being taken from her.
You know, I actually work out. I incorporate in my workout actually moves that will sustain me over the years to keep me in a limbered state, so that I can, you know, because when we want to play the queen and we want to make a man go, you know, drop dead, like, oh my God, then you have to actually be able to squat. You actually have to be able to dance while you do it. It's when I perform, I call it a performance at times because it's fun, man. It's very much like chair dancing and lap dancing with your partner. You're putting on a wonderful, and they are just like, oh my God. So
sex is how adults play. So it shouldn't be boring.
No, it shouldn't be.
You know, it doesn't mean you have to be like, you know, hanging from rafters and do
unless you want to, but I agree with you.
That's the thing. You know, but to give women permission to even explore that. I mean, women will have questions like, you know, well, how do I have a vaginal orgasm if I can only have a clitoral orgasm? You know, they want to know these different things. And so to teach these basic techniques, it's fun. So
that is. I've been teaching that for the last 5.5 years. I had a chapter in one of my books called Aligning Your Mind for the Ultimate Orgasm. And that's really, really cool because, and I even taught and she might even be watching this summit, I don't know. I even taught a high school friend who is a doctor of psychology and works with women in sexual issues. I taught her how to teach people and herself how to have multiple orgasms and vaginal, because clitoris you can have, but you know, you've got to retrain your mind to understand the pleasure and the enjoyment. And, you know, at first it is some mental work, but it's very, very cool when you can just be touched and explode, you know, it's incredible.
And it's cool to be able to just be allowed to be touched and feel okay with it, whether you have stretched marks.
That's what I was going to say. Let's say this to all the women watching. Men they're voyeurs. They love to watch. So if you are confident, no matter what size you are, no matter anything, if you come to them in a beautiful, seductive, confident state, you've got your man drooling and everything else, and it doesn't matter because they are just so into you and your confidence and your, you know, and your, it's incredible. That was the first lesson I learned after I left my husband. And, I was just like, I felt like a rock star, you know, it was like, isn't that cool? It's like, woo, baby, you know, and there are different levels of, and since this is one of the more sensual topics here, there are different levels of how we express ourselves, and why not enjoy, and everybody has their own level of passion and intimacy and all that, but why not experience the most joyful time, like when you were a kid? I'm not talking about sex as a kid. I'm talking about when you are out there doing what you totally love to do, and you don't want to stop for anything, and you know that by the end of the night you're like so exhausted. Wow, that was a great day hiking and camping and having fun, and you know, whatever it is. You know, it's incredible because when you're through with your episode with your partner, it's pretty hot. Everybody's satisfied.
Yeah.
No one walks away unsatisfied, baby. And that's how it should be for us.
Yes, and that's being turned on.
Yeah.
That's living life to the fullest. You know, there's this idea that we were built for survival of the fittest. I don't think our body was built for the survival of the fittest. I think we were built for pleasure. I mean, our body, physically, the woman's body especially, hello, what does the clitoris do? Evolutionary, it makes no sense to have an organ devoted totally to pleasure, unless...
They didn't even know that until the late 1800s when they used to, what was it called, female hysteria, and so they would manipulate, doctors would manipulate with their hand the woman's... I can't even imagine. And then she'd orgasm. And they're like, okay, you're okay for like 6 weeks to 2 months. You know, go home. You've had your hystericalness, you know, and she's like, ah! and that's when the first electric, the vibrator was made. I mean, it's incredible that it took us so long, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, to actually put a label on what it is.
And to think that they've only until, I think, what's in the last 10 years, they've actually mapped a woman's clitoris. Like, it's got all sorts of beautiful, parts to it. So, yeah, we're on the cutting edge, literally, of understanding female sexuality. And I'm fully behind women being able to embrace that in a way that feels
And I want
right
to say,
for them.
if you don't feel empowered by what we were just talking about, listen to it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're a rock star. It's awesome.
Well, I'd love to invite women to connect to me.
That would be wonderful. Can you also share your free gift? And they
yes,
will?
that's what I was going to say. So I'd like to give women what I call the Passionate Living Starter Kit, and they can get that on my website. And you have the link provided, correct?
Yes.
So, and I'd also like to give every woman who is listening to this a chance to connect to me personally. So I will have that set up as well, that they can request a free, a complimentary discovery session with me, where I can give them, be like a practical fairy godmother, and they can pick whatever question they want to ask. It can be about the dating dilemma. It can be about the relationship they're in. It could be about, how could I have an experience of different, things sexually. So if you have a question about finding love or healing love or making love better, I will answer anybody's question. I'll give them all one free call. One free call.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Your other gift sounds like it's phenomenal. Do you want to talk just briefly about that so that people grab it?
The Passionate Living Starter Kit?
Yeah.
It's beautiful, simple techniques and tools and practical tips to being open to more passion.
Wonderful.
So some aphrodisiac recipes are involved, some, rich mindfulness practices to help bring in some heat into your day.
Nice.
So that's what it's going to,
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. One more last message from your heart for the audience.
Your body is infinitely wise. Tune into her. When you have a feeling and an experience, you can shut it down, or you can be open to it and turn those wounds into wisdom.
That's really beautiful. I love turn those wounds into wisdom. That's what it's all about. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tina, for joining us. It's been wonderful having you.
Yay!
It's
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you all. We'll see you in another segment. Bye.